Welcome to Module 4, Video 2 of the Lead Quizzes Facebook Comprehensive Guide. Joining me again, I have Dunbury Visor, Lead Quizzes co-founder. In this video, we're going to be talking about testing your ad campaign, the different things that you should be testing for your ads, as well as what you should be split testing in the quiz software. All right, Dunbury, so testing. You run a lot of ad campaigns.
Yep.
What are some of the most important things we should be testing? What's like the top thing that you do when you're running a test?
The top things that you need to be testing when running a quiz campaign is you got to test the image. The image is extremely important. The image is the first thing that's going to capture someone's attention while they're scrolling through their news feed or reading a article on Facebook. That's the thing that's going to get them to stop and think about, hey, let me check out what that ad is about. So images are extremely important. Like every high performing campaign that we've had, we've always done a lot of tests on like the images for our quiz campaigns to make sure that they work.
What are some things that you test in images? Like, what should we be trying? Obviously, high quality images are really good. We talked about in a previous video, try and use things that have some color in it.
Yeah.
What are some other things you do to make your images stand out?
I use Canva to add some call to actions on my images, to add some text to it that maybe they don't read the copy on the ad, but they read the copy on the image, and that captures their attention. I always try to go with bright colors so it stands out in like the news feed, so they see it right away. That doesn't mean like bright colors where it becomes an annoying thing and people are like, oh, let me just scroll past it.
Something I've heard is to try and avoid using like Facebook blue or like the gray or the white, because it kind of blends in.
Yeah, you don't want images that blend in. You want images that creates some sort of emotional state that brings out something, happiness, or it creates relatability within like the targeted audience that you're trying to go after.
How many images will you test at a time? Does it depend on your budget that you have, or what do you do there?
It basically depends on the budget that you have. If you have a small budget, it's going to limit the amount of tests that you can run. If you have a big budget, you can test all sorts of things, all combinations of different texts for your ads, images, targeting. So it just really all depends on the size of your budget and how much time you also have to test as well, because testing is not an easy thing to do. It requires a lot of work to constantly changing out stuff, writing copy, and to maintain, constantly tracking the numbers to make sure you're hitting the right numbers. The next thing that you need to test is once you capture someone's attention, you need to test the copy, making sure that copy really resonates with them and speaks to that the targeted audience that you're going after. Testing short copy versus long copy, testing call to actions within the copy, testing curiosity, like creating curiosity within that the ad copy to drive them to the quiz ads. That's you need to just constantly be testing and changing out stuff to make sure it works, and making sure that you're speaking the language of your targeted audience. That's really important.
You mentioned doing short copy versus long copy. Should we make drastic changes when we're doing a test, or should we make a small copy change? Does it depend?
So you want to have your base, your control that you work from. So if you have your control, and then you make one change to make sure you know what change you made that actually made an impact, or didn't perform. When you start to make multiple changes on your variation, it makes it a lot harder for you to figure out what exactly you created, what exactly you did in order to get the results that you got.
So you don't want to do, say, like image and text at the same time. You want to keep one the same and then change the other.
Yeah, like if you're gonna just test image, just change out the image for the variation. Don't change image, copy, and the call to action.
Okay. So that goes into the actual ad itself. Now when it comes to other things we should be testing, so maybe like audience, what are other things you test?
I test videos to see if that works better, not just images. Test videos that relate to the quiz campaign that I'm running. I also test, ad placement. I make sure I test the right hand side versus newsfeed. Instagram ads versus instant article ads as well.
Now, when
I'll
it
test
comes
that.
to placement, there's a bunch of different options.
Yeah.
Is there any one that you think we should stay away from, or should we test all of them?
You should always test all of them, but when you're starting out, what I recommend you do is make sure you stay within the Facebook. So you're like, and what I mean by that is newsfeed, right hand side, Instagram. Instant articles is something that I recommend that you test later because your instant articles is basically the format can really change and you don't have too much control
Same
over that.
thing with Audience Network, I've heard.
Same thing with audience networks because audience networks is basically Facebook partners that are running Facebook ads on their app or website, so you don't know exactly what's going to be on there. So you want to kind of stick to those Facebook newsfeed right hand side and Instagram ads, and then once you've kind of figured that out, then branch out to like those other placements.
Now, Facebook automatically does automatic placements. Should we use that, or should we, when we start out, should we go and actually edit the placements?
What I do is I edit the placements. I'll test one placement at a time to see how it performs, and then I'll add another placement into it and see how that performs. And I'm always constantly testing different placements. And sometimes I'll let Facebook run the placements itself. But when you have a very small budget, you want to control like the placements as much as possible because some placements are a lot more expensive than others. For example, newsfeed is an expensive placement. Right hand side on Facebook is a cheaper placement overall. Instagram is an expensive placement as well because you're only getting it right in the newsfeed and there's no other place to like serve your ads outside of Instagram stories.
Okay. Now, what about when it comes to the audience? Should we be like breaking it down? Should we be looking at anything in there to make changes?
When it comes to audience targeting, you want to test like age range. You want to test education level. You want to test.
Now, I know that age and gender, you can actually see a breakdown of in your ads after they've been running for a while. You can see who's reacting to your ads. Is that something that you use to figure out, like, 45-year-olds look to be responding to this? I'm going to run ads just to them to see if they really are responding.
Yeah, so if I run my initial ads and it seems like 45-year-olds are really gravitating towards the quiz campaigns that I'm running, I'm going to create a variation where I target people within that age range that Facebook says is the cheapest cost per lead, having everything the same, ad copy, text, targeting, and the only thing I'm changing is the age range.
Okay. What about, is there timing that we can look at when it comes to testing? Like, is that anything that we can see?
I also test like different times of the day to run the ads. I'll test different days to actually run the ads to see what that is. When I start out, I don't have any restrictions on days because I don't quite know how it's going to perform yet.
But once you get some data, you can see if people are responding better on, say, like the weekends or the weekdays, and you can make those adjustments. Okay, awesome. Anything else that we should be testing in the ad itself or when it comes to running the ads on Facebook?
You should also be testing your lookalike audience, the different percentages of them, the 1%, 2%, 5%, seeing how those perform, and also test, always constantly, again, testing your targeting and trying to figure that out and the languaging that you're using in your ad copy.
Okay, so there you have it, guys, some things you should be testing in the ad. Now let's look into the actual quiz and what you should be testing with the quiz. So as you guys know, there's a feature in lead quizzes where you can actually split test. So you can have two different versions of the quiz basically going at the same time. Now there's a few things you want to do in there. Number one, make sure you're only running one test at a time, because as you'd mentioned, the Facebook ads, if you make 3 changes, you aren't going to know which one actually resulted in the improvement or it not improving at all. So some different things that you should be testing with the split test. Again, only testing one thing at a time. The start page image, either using one or not using one, so using that start page or not. The quiz title and the description, so that text that's on that start page if you are using that start page. Just
remember, once someone hits your quiz start page, it's basically another ad that you're trying to get them to like take the next action. So don't just half-ass your start page. Actually put some time and thought into it. Make sure it connects to your ad that you're running, and then your start page also provides value as to like what you'll get at the end of your quiz, or what kind of results you should expect to see. Set expectations on your start page so someone is willing to take that step and go through 10 to 12 questions that you may have in order to, and enter in their name and email in order to get their results.
And that brings us into our next one, testing the number of questions that you have. That's really important. Seeing if maybe having 12 questions versus 16 questions has a big difference. Again, only test that, one at a time that you're doing there. You can also test the type of lead capture you do at the end of the quiz. So whether that is the amount of information you're asking for, if you're using that lead capture form, or using the lead capture form versus a Facebook opt-in. See if there's an improvement there. Some other things you'll be testing is customizing your quiz. So maybe colors that you're seeing on the quiz, using your logo, buttons. Not using your logo, buttons, exactly. The types of answers you can have for your questions. So image versus text. See which one really works best for you guys. Some things that can help with conversion. So after somebody goes through your quiz is testing that outcomes page. Whether you're using the outcome builder in lead quizzes or you're doing a redirect to your own page that you have, test that and see which one converts more. A few other things, test follow-up sequences, different styles of quizzes. There's lots that you can be testing is the main point here. Just make sure you're testing smartly and you're only doing one test at a time so you know what that big change is. Now, Donaberry, how long do you recommend we run these tests for?
It really depends on how much traffic you're getting to your quizzes. If you're getting very low traffic, or you're very targeting a small audience size, you may have to run it a lot longer. If you are generating a ton of traffic but you're not seeing results, you may have, and you're running a test, you may just have to shut it off because it's just not working. So the time actually really just depends on how much traffic you're getting to your quizzes, and what's your audience size look like, and what kind of results are you looking to see within those days.
Yeah, and Facebook says as a general rule of thumb when you're running campaigns, test it for 3 to 14 days. As Donaberry said though, that can change depending upon your audience size and like your budget that you have. I've also heard you can do like 1,000 reach. That's a good kind of testing point. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. Definitely agree with it. Sometimes I do a little bit more than that just to see, because one thing with impressions is if an advertiser was spending big budget on the days that I was running, I wasn't getting enough impressions, and then a week later, now I'm getting a lot more impressions because
maybe they stopped advertising.
Yeah, they stopped advertising, or the audience just became a lot cheaper to reach. So that can improve my numbers dramatically. But if I just shut it off right away, I would never saw that.
And I've also heard a minimum 24 hours with Facebook ads, just because it can take that long to kind of recalculate the algorithm. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So guys, wait 24 hours that your Facebook ad changes. Make sure you have enough people coming through to actually see a real change. So you can see if it's actually working or not. Obviously, if you only have 2 people come through, you're not going to get a really good test size there. And you can always check to see how your quiz is doing in the Lead Quizzes dashboard when you're doing a split test. Just go to the little split test button right up the top where it has analytics next to your quiz. And you'll be able to see a breakdown of each quiz, how it's performing, and which people are actually converting more from which quiz. So there you have it, guys. Some information for you on testing and what you should be doing. For your next video, we're going to be talking about scaling your ad campaign, best practices for that, and how to make sure you keep your lead costs where it's at when you scale. So we'll see you guys on the next video.